So, hello everyone. I am here with Mr. Maurice Martin, and he is a life coach, an author, and I saw that you even have a podcast.
That is true. That's true.
Yes. And so you have an amazing story behind why you got into life coaching and a testimony. So I would love for you to just tell everybody how you got to where you are now in your testimony.
Sure, absolutely. So, as she said, my name is Maurice Martin, and how I got here. I guess could only be you could only say I got here through God, right? And so, during my 20s, I was a musician, and I guess you could say I had a great professional experience with a whole bunch of not great things happening as an individual, as a human. And so I was able to work with Grammy winners and Emmy winners, Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. I had licensing deals with MTV and VH1. And I feel like as I was going through my career, my life was just plummeting personally. And so it was depression and anxiety. And then at the end of my 20s, I started drinking more and more. By the time I got into my 30s, I was drunk, I was high, I was just trying to numb out and not feel. And so 2016, I often say is really where my life completely shifted, and it started with honestly just me at my own personal breaking point, really trying to figure out, do I really want to live, and if I do, how do I want to live, and what does that need to look like?
Mm-hmm.
And then, if that wasn't enough, my brother, who we were really close, he passed away 2016, and it was actually the second brother who died in 2 years. The first brother was a half brother who we weren't quite as close, and he passed away, and it was heartbreak and tragedy and just not good. And then my second brother
Sorry.
died, and so you just imagine, you just have a point where you say enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm really going to live, how
Mm-hmm.
do I really live now? Like, how do I get more authentic and more real within myself?
Mm-hmm.
I went after God. I went after the real me. I went after trying to take my life to another level. And so now at this point in my life, I was able to write. I've written two books. I've also written a prayer journal, and I have a workbook that's coming out in a couple weeks. And it's just, I do everything I can. I'm a counselor, I'm a coach. I'm constantly pouring into people, helping push people in their own right direction so that they can get to the life that they were born to live. And so I guess that's kind of like the best way that I can describe me in a nutshell at the beginning.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny how you kind of find your purpose after some of the hardest moments
That's it. That's
in
it.
your life.
I feel like I feel like one of the things that we have a hard time understanding, but we have to acknowledge, is that purpose is often birthed out of pain. So, in other words, when you go through real things in life, it forces you to get real. I know what I think I stand for, but when the going gets tough, I know what I really stand for. I know what I think I believe in, but I find out what I really believe in when the tears fall, when the emotions rise, when the people leave. I think that's when often purpose is birthed, because you learn so much more about who you really are and what you really bring to the table.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. And I think that those moments really do show you your strength,
Mhm.
that strength that you didn't even know you had.
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
I think that the hard thing about that, though, is that nobody wants to find out about your strength that way.
mm-mm.
I would like to just have my strength emerge, right? I don't want to do no work for it. I don't want to hit no wall for it. I don't want to feel tragedy for it. I just want my courage to come out. I just want my strength to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we learned, though, is it's when the weight gets unbearable that you learn the weight you can bear,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's
It's
true.
I think, and that's okay. That's part of God's design, in my opinion.
I know. I saw a meme that said, I'm tired of, I don't want to have to learn that what don't kill me. What is it
Make
saying?
me strong.
Yeah, what doesn't kill you make you stronger.
Ooh, can I tell you about a revelation I had about that saying a couple weeks ago?
Oh, see, and okay, I want everybody to know that we did not talk about
We
this.
did
So
not
this is
rehearse this. There was no rehearsal. This is real life. A couple
okay.
weeks ago, I'm thinking about that saying, what
Mm-hmm.
doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought to myself, so then if every day since a tragedy happened, if every day since a heartbreak happened, I've got weaker and weaker, it killed me. Not all death is physical. And
Yeah.
sometimes we miss that the things we thought we survived killed a part of us. And if you don't really acknowledge that it was killed, you'll never be able to revive that part of your life.
Okay. See, you talking now.
That blew me away when I caught it. That was just revelation for me.
Oh wow. See, I have these shows and I talk to a lot of different people.
Hmm.
And I'm usually like, I say to myself, because, before I would be like, well, I don't want to be so deep, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I just want to be lighthearted and fun because, that's who I am. I'm a Leo, by the way. This is my birthday is on it's on us. It's on Sunday.
Hmm.
And so we just, we like to have a good time and, sometimes the life of the party, of course,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
me.
Not you. Just other people born around the same
Yeah,
time.
around that
Just
time.
round the way. Just
Yeah,
round the way.
around that time. And then we have these moments, and I'm like, oh my Lord.
Mm, mm, mm. But it usually is the people who are the most fun that have the most to say in a deep way, right? Because I
Yes.
feel like, now maybe this is just me, but I feel like God creates people with balance, right? And so like me, I'm a Capricorn, okay? And so like at the end of the day, whether you subscribe to all that stuff or not, what I'm gonna tell you about me is I'm intense, okay? And I'm very hyper focused. And so my humor is like it just comes out of nowhere at you, right? I'm the kind of individual that I'm always thinking about how do we grow? How do we heal? How do we change? And then all of a sudden I start cracking jokes because I feel like that's how God makes you is to find balance because you're going to tip over if you don't. And so sometimes we always want to be the life of the party, but what about the life of the healing and the life of the growth and the life of the maturity? Sometimes you have to be that too. That's why a person like you does what you do because you invite people in to be themselves so that growth can happen.
Yes. You are so right. You are so right. My sister's on here. She said, "Preach." That is my sister. Hey, sister.
What's going on, sis? And you say whatever you want during this interview. Be ready for you.
Look, now if I might have to hide some of your comments, can you? Because I don't want you in here chiming in, talk about yeah, she know about that. Look, she know all about that.
Yeah, the truth will come and sneak up behind you if you're not careful.
Yes, yes, it will. Yes, it will. And so, okay, so in your time as a life coach and you said you were a minister.
I do minister. I'm not going to call myself a minister. How about that? And so, in other words, I haven't been ordained as a minister, but I absolutely preach and teach the gospel. I preach every Sunday at a recovery facility. And then, my wife and I both honestly are starting to grow our ministries right now. And so I consider what I do in general a ministry, in that I feel like I was put on the earth to help people grow from what they've been through. Um, how many people do you know in your life? They are strong, they are capable, they are talented, but deep down, they haven't healed from some real important things in their life. Like they went through a couple tragedies and they ain't really been themselves since then. They still grind, they still go get it, they still make money, but they're a shell of who they used to be. I feel like I was put on the earth to get people out of the shell and back into the them they're supposed to be, right? That like you're the walking dead. You're accomplishing, but you ain't feeling it. Your smile's not really as bright as it used to be. You're mothering, but some of the joy of motherhood is gone. You're fathering, but some of your manhood has dissipated, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I feel like I come into play. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a ministry because I'm helping you get reconnected with the God who had in mind when he made you.
Mm-hmm. So you came to set the captives free.
That's it. That's literally whenever I go speak at a conference or I go somewhere, my wife always says, "Baby, set the captives free." That's like literally what she says out going out the door. And one of the most important things most captives need to know is that they're already free. They just need to walk in it.
Yes. See, and I know that feeling because I be thinking I'm free, and then another bill come.
Come on, man,
And
you
then
ain't
guess
never
what?
lied.
Then the next month they come again.
Right, right, right. Hey, there's this moment where you smiled and you realize it's all gone before it, like it's in the bank, just looking at you, mocking you. Oh no, we not really here. We not really here. We gone. Yeah, that's not a minute that I enjoy. Let's be very clear.
My sister said he came to set the captive free, and what made me say that was because my mother had a book
mm,
entitled that he came,
mm,
and that was the first thing I thought of when you were saying that some people are
mhm.
walking around just a shell of themselves,
Yes.
and sometimes that is a hard place to get out of. um Honestly,
Hmm.
I feel like it's really hard for a place to get out of, especially when you don't really want to talk about it,
Mm,
um or you don't want to go to counseling, or you can't go to counseling, you don't have time to go to counseling.
mhm,
So what do you tell those people who just feel like they know they need the help, or whatever the case, they know they need the healing,
mhm,
but don't want to, first of all, some people don't want to acknowledge that they need the healing,
mhm,
or they don't know how to get it.
mm. You know, the first thing I tell people is you already know what you need. It's just that you said a couple scenarios. You said a person doesn't know, a person isn't sure how to do it, a person can't afford it. What happens when you finally voice that you need it and a person says, "That's not true, you fine. That's not true, you good." Or you open up your heart and a person doesn't have time for you. I have learned that so many people, the cry for help is actually a whimper. The cry for help comes with laughter. The cry for help comes with a cool and calm, easy head. Girl, I'm tripping. Bruh, I'm a mess right now. And you laugh it off. You move past it. Now you opened up a door because you wanted somebody to help you. You wanted somebody to recommend a therapist. You wanted somebody to have a heart to heart with you. And so what I've learned is the first thing you have to say to someone is, "I'm sorry that the people before didn't catch it. But please know that has nothing to do with if you're worth healing."
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people think, you know what, my problems ain't really that important. This
Mm-hmm.
person over here has real problems. The person over here has real issues. I mean, we laughed about what happens when the bills come and the money's leaving. Well, it gets even worse when you told yourself, as soon as I get this money, then I'll be happy. As soon
Mm-hmm.
as I get my promotions, then my life will. Soon as I get a good woman, soon as I get a good man, then my life will be everything I need. And you
Mm-hmm.
get everything you thought you needed, and you're still broken and empty. You're not broke no more, but you're broken. It's worse. And so you have to let people know you're worth the healing. It's
Mm-hmm.
worth you taking the time. I know you help everybody else, but you deserve the help now.
Mm-hmm.
You get to open up your heart and open up your mind. There's nothing wrong with that. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that one of the things that I always do, and I think if you maybe it's a friend, a family member that comes to you, let them know that you see them as a person, not a robot. It's one of the greatest things you can do to help somebody in life.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Or I know that sometimes people are even told, oh, so and so got it worse.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Why?
Hmm.
Almost. You feel like, oh, they're being dramatic.
Right.
It's not that bad. But you never know, mentally where that person is. That
Mm-hmm.
it could be the end for them. You know what I'm
That's it.
saying? It could have just been the tip of the iceberg. Whatever the situation was may seem small,
Mm-hmm.
but it can, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I do, because the question is, how deep does it have to be to make a person go crazy? I mean, at the end of the day, people lose their minds. And here's the reality. We see CEOs commit suicide. We see
Mm,
preachers and teachers and all these people who people love, actors and musicians, they
yeah.
just give up, right? So this whole concept of, well, it's not that bad or it could be worse is a relative statement. If it's bad enough for you to have heartbreak, for you to have trauma, for you to have pain, it's bad enough to address it. And that's my perspective. A lot of people, when you start talking about this stuff, they're like, "Ain't nobody got time to sit here and talk about these emotions, right? I got too much work to do. I got these kids running around. I got a marriage to take care of." And what I say is, you have too much going on to not take care of your problems, because
You're
you have
right.
these kids running around and this marriage to
Hmm.
take care of and that business to run. That's actually why it's so important for you to be addressing the stuff that's hurt you.
Hmm. That is so true. And then you're putting yourself on the back burner,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I'm working with one of my business partners who we have another show called the Unwind Lounge, and it's
Mm-hmm.
specifically about self-care.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people really understand that why that concept is so important.
Vital.
One of I'll consider her one of my mentors in my mind, Lisa Nichols.
Yep. Yep.
who
Yes. Yes.
yes. She talked about how the reason one of her purposes was helping girls to fall in love with themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I didn't understand until I got a little older what you mean. What do you mean by falling in love with yourself? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand the concept, and that kind of let you know where I was at the time. Like,
Mm.
well, why is that necessary? You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people have that mindset. You don't understand, and then two, the whatever outside factors may have make you feel less than.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the reasons why. And I understand now. Those are the reasons why you need to fall in love with yourself, because nobody is really going to love you as much as you are. And then when you do, then you can find somebody to match that. We always talk about matching energy.
Come
You know,
on.
it's like, match this love right here.
Come on. Come on.
I'm saying, match this.
Yes, and I had to check myself, right? Because I get married, right? And I have an incredible wife. And I'm sitting there one day, and this was a terrible moment in my life, I won't lie. I'm sitting there and I think, I really don't know what it means to love me, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, if I don't know how to love me, I can't be doing that great of a job loving her. If I don't really know how to take care of me,
Mm-hmm.
do I really understand how to take care of her? Now I got two babies, right? I got a 1-year old and a 4-year old. Do I really know how to love on those kids if I don't know how to love me? Because what we have to understand is that love is not just pampering, and self care is not just pampering either. It's acknowledging that life isn't perfect and life isn't fair and that sometimes things are hard. And in the midst of it, we have to go out of our way to give compassion, to give grace, to
Mm-hmm.
rebuild strength, to refocus vision. And all of that is not only a part of self care, it's a part of self love.
Yeah.
The better that you do that for yourself, the better that you say, look, I'm worth it. I got to take the time to make sure my mind's right, to make sure that my heart's right, to make sure that I'm not acting funny, to make sure I'm bringing the best me to the table. When you do those things, it
Mm-hmm.
improves every relationship you have in your life.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think God fits into that equation?
He's the center. He's the center. I'm giving you scripture. Love thy neighbor as you love yourself. how can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Scripture says, from the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm belittling myself, if I'm speaking down to myself, if I'm showing a lack of appreciation for what God put in me,
Mm-hmm.
then I'm showing that the heart that God gave me is off.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I see in scripture where it tells me that there are these things called the fruit of the spirit,
Mm-hmm.
which means that when I'm calibrated right, like when my mind's right, my heart's right, everything's right with me, there's
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be peace and patience and kindness. And there's all these things that should flow out of me if I'm in alignment with God. So to
Mm-hmm.
me, self-care is rooted in God, the
Mm-hmm.
right kind of self-care. I understand that the world teaches self-care too, but what
Right.
I tell people is if you were created in the image of God, when you look in that mirror, you're looking at God.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at least the son of God, the daughter of God, a version of God, right? And so when you look there, do you see God or do you see your flesh? Do you see
Mm-hmm.
your brokenness? Do you see your sin? Do you see or do you see the redeemed,
Mm-hmm.
the restored,
Right.
the highly favored,
Mm-hmm.
the blessed? If you don't see those things, maybe you're looking with the wrong lens and you need to recalibrate to God.
Mm. Wow. That's deep.
Mhm.
That's deep. So okay. So what do you do? How do you tell people when they realize that they're at a point where they do need healing? What do you tell them to do in order to
Mm.
actually get there to recalibrate?
Yes. So recalibration or reconfiguration requires starting off with an analysis. In other words, you can't fix what you won't look at. You can't adjust what you won't acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tell people, do you want to get better? Yes, I do. I really do. Okay, what needs to get better? What's wrong? What's off? Well, I don't know. Well, if you don't know, I can't help. What are we fixing? That's like driving your car into the shop and saying, fix it. Okay, what you want me to fix? The tires? The muffler? The engine? No, 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 no. I just got a problem with my radio. Okay, thank you for letting me know because now I can diagnose the proper problem. So I need people, the starting point of healing and growth is I ain't felt right for a while. What do you mean? I wake up in the morning, I don't have a lot of hope. I've been going through my life, I don't have patience for the people I care about. I used to be driven, but my drive is gone.
Mm-hmm.
When we can properly acknowledge what's wrong, then we can say, now let's come up with a game plan to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in today's day and age, that everybody is looking for a quick 2 steps to fix a problem. Give me 3 points for this, 5 points for that, and let's be done with it. Well, the
Mm-hmm.
reality is, if you really want to get better, step one is acknowledge what your problem is. Step
Right.
two is decide, are you sure you want to do the work it's going to take to fix it?
Right.
That's before I give you any steps to work on it. Are you sure
Mm-hmm.
you want to fix it? Scripture says that Jesus goes up to a man. The man's been sick for 38 years, hadn't been able to walk right, hadn't been able to get into the pool. He says, do you wish to get well?
Mm-hmm.
I ask that question to people. Do you wish to get well? I wouldn't be here in front of you if I wasn't wish to get well. Okay, but getting well might require you to stand up. Are you sure you want to do that? Standing up is hard when you're tired.
Yeah.
Standing up is hard when you're not sure if your legs are going to work like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Standing up is scary.
Mm-hmm.
If you were standing up before, but your husband was there, your wife is there, they're gone now. Somebody has died in your life. There's a tragedy. Are you sure you want to stand up? And so, to me, we have to start off by acknowledging what's really happening, accepting it's going to take some uncomfortable work to get there. Then we can even begin to have the conversation about what does it look like to get better. And I
Mm.
think it's the mindset that starts everything, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm married and you're married, and God bless us.
But you know what?
But
Here's what I learned though. Here's what I've learned. My wife is the perfect mirror for my life.
Mm.
Because anytime my wife is tripping, it shows me I've been tripping. That's a horrible thing to acknowledge, right? If my wife is off, I promise you I've been off. Right? Because what'll end up happening is you're in a funky place, right? You ain't quite in a good place, your groove just ain't right where it's supposed to be. And you keep walking in and interacting with one another. They're feeding off of you, you're feeding them something that they can't, that won't sustain them, that won't maintain them, that won't grow them, that won't inspire them. Usually when I come up to my wife and my wife is off mentally or off in a hard place, it's a mirror. She's showing me where I've been off for weeks or months. Yeah, but she's not tripping in the same way. I've been working hard. But if you really look and you really examine, you will often find that there is a balance in marriage. And a lot of times people have been compensating for what you've been lacking, and that's why they're off. Or people have been trying to stand in places where you've been sitting, and that's why they're off. Or people have gone quiet because you wouldn't give them what they needed in those areas, and they shut up and they've grown quiet. Or you've been giving them way too much of something and they're drowning in it and they're just trying to stay afloat. They're a mirror to who you are. Now, when you look at marriage that way, then you won't spend all your time finger pointing.
Right.
You know? Then you go, oh dang, you tripping. What's wrong with me right now? That's really what I do now. And it has opened up my communication with my wife in beautiful ways.
Right. So, what do you tell those couples who where one spouse is, oh yeah, we should go to therapy, but then the other one's like, what's wrong? Why?
Well, I I always start with like, okay, you want to know what I really say? On
What?
the inside, I go, Jesus, what are we doing? Right? you know, it's not that different than I've done a lot of work in the recovery field, and you have no idea how many people they're sitting in front of you in rehab, and they're convinced they don't have a drug problem. Like they don't have an alcohol problem.
Um,
And sometimes what you got to do is you got to say, so how often do you drink? Oh, every day. Okay. And how many beers a day do you drink? Oh, just a 6-pack. Okay. You drink a 6-pack every day? Well, when it's real bad, I have 12. Okay. Some days you have 12. What about the weekend? Ooh, the weekend we really get down. Okay. So how many drinks is that in 1 week? Okay. How many weeks is that 52? So you've been drinking 10,000 beers a year. And that's like if we don't even count them all, and we didn't talk about the
right.
weed. We didn't talk about the weed. Okay,
Don't
and
talk about the weed.
wasn't no weed in that. We just talking Henny, like we just talking beers. Okay, and so I
Don't
think
talk about the Henny.
hey, somebody just turned off the whole broadcast because I hurt their feelings. Uh,
We lost somebody.
that's it. They were like, "Oh, way too personal. Got to go." Right? So my thing is a relationship works in the same way. People
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, we're good and we just live in life. Cool. Let's talk about what life has been. When's the last time you felt joy? When's the
Mm-hmm.
last time you felt peace? When's the last time y'all just cackled together? Just cut up for no reason, right? And people go, well, I mean, we ain't done that in a couple years, but that's we busy living life, and life has been miserable. It's the same. You sometimes have to show people the life they've been living so they really understand. Here's and there's a reason. I just want to say this because it's
Okay.
important. We become uncomfortable. We become comfortable with uncomfortable things,
Right.
right?
So what about the guy will fix it, people?
He will if you let him.
So I mean that's it though.
He'll. What does it look like to let him? See, now people don't want to actually start to go there about what does it look like for God to actually fix it.
Oh, but you know what? I think right what's applicable here too is faith without works is dead.
Come,
Because too
you see my
the
hat?
oh yeah, faith plus words. Yes, yes. And I think that applies
It
in that
does.
situation too.
It
It's like,
does.
yes, God is a miracle worker. He is. He can fix anything, but at the same time, if that's the case, we wouldn't need doctors when our arm is broken. You can't just say, well, yeah, God gonna heal this. No, you got to go. They got to put that bone back in place. The
Come
people
on.
that's been trained to do it,
Thank you.
that's been educated to do it.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying? You
I
got
think
to go to the hospital. That bone ain't gonna heal itself.
all I need you to do, all the people who just say, God will fix it, God will fix it, God will fix it, I say, step number one, pick up your Bible and show me God doing everything without people. Which book you want to go to? Pick a book and show me God just doing stuff, no people involved. You're not going to find it because God uses people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes God goes ahead of the people. Sometimes God prepares for the people. God stands and supports the people. God speaks in the game plan and assignment to the people. But God uses people, just like God uses angels. God uses all kinds of things in order to get his initiative to be fulfilled. So when
Mm-hmm.
a person comes to me and they say, "Well, I'm just praying that God will do it," well, He's not going to do it without you. It requires your participation. And I'm going to say something right now. Somebody might need to hear this who's watching. Maybe they're watching now, or they're watching later. I think sometimes we miss that when people interacted with Jesus in scripture, they were not done with their journey. So I don't care if you talk about one of my great examples is the woman with the issue of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Scripture says she has this moment and she reaches, if I could only touch the hem of his garment, and all the preachers preach about it. And I always say, so how long did it take for the woman to get her miracle? And they say just immediately. No, Scripture said it took 12 years. So first of all, let's understand
Don't
sometimes there
take it
is
out of context.
desperation
Right.
inquired, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's desperation required. Let's
Okay.
not take the story out of context. You
Mm-hmm.
don't know how many prayers she had prayed. You don't know how many times she thought that she had already got the healing. And here's what we don't always think about: the cultural context of the scripture.
Right.
So that woman, because she was bleeding, was looked at as unclean.
Mm.
And because she was looked at as unclean, she was always forced to be on the outskirts of society, right? So now, after this woman who has been seen all over God's creation as unclean, because she went place to place to place to place to place trying to get healed, she now walks back into the places where she has been shamed. And she has to tell people, but I met a man.
Mm.
Now, understand when she sees some of those people, because we have human life and we know what life is,
Mm-hmm.
some of seeing those people is triggering for trauma.
Mm.
She's reminded of how sick she was. She's reminded of those tears. And sometimes you have joy and pain. That's a song, sunshine and rain, right? You have
Yes.
both. And
Yes.
so, why would God fix you in such a way that you don't still require God?
Oh yeah. Okay. That's good.
So after God has healed you and you've had your miracle moment, you're
Mm-hmm.
still going to need to look to
Oh
God.
yeah.
And in fact, you should have more vigor behind it. So
Mm.
when a person says, I just want to have God fix it, well, the moment when God fixes it isn't actually a moment. God fixes your life in a journey. It's one day at a time. It's another fix. It's another step. It's another growth. I was drunk, I was high, I was miserable, I was suicidal, I was depressed. God changed my life in a moment. Now I'm preaching, I teach, I prophesy, I author books. Does that mean that I don't need God anymore? Does
Mm-hmm.
that mean that I'm all the way fixed? Come on now.
Right.
I still a mess just like everybody else.
That's
I'm
true.
just not the mess I used to be.
Mm.
But
New
for the
mess.
grace of God. I'm a new
A
mess,
new
but
mess.
I'm my daddy's mess. You see,
See? Okay, so then I can embrace it when people say you messy. Yes.
and is I,
And what are you?
right. That's it. And I struggle when I see people or hear people speak about their relationship with God in such a way that they act like they don't need God no more. I got the Holy Spirit. I don't need nothing else. I'm just perfect. Then how come I have so many clients as a life coach and as a counselor who met
Come
God
on.
before but struggle?
Come
So
on.
you just the only one, huh? You just the Holy Spirit made you so you don't sin. Because I read Paul's words,
Oh yeah.
and Paul tells me
It's a,
that
yeah. A
he had
thorn.
issues.
Mm-hmm. That was the thorn.
Why? How come in the Bible that
Mm-hmm.
the books that are written in the New Testament are
Mm-hmm.
letters written to people who are already saved.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, with an ever increasingly growing church, there were always new people who needed to be discipled, and the body was changing and evolving. And I'm not trying to suggest that it wasn't. But most of these letters written in the New Testament are written to churches that are already established, and it's saying, stop partying with those people. Hey, you guys got some trifling stuff going on in your church and you need to shut it down. Hey, make sure that when you pick leaders, that you pick leaders that have these qualities. Don't pick wrong anymore. Hey, you guys need to reprimand this person who's in your community who's doing false teachings about Jesus. I mean, literally, he's writing to imperfect Christians.
Right.
But somehow we read the scriptures and we think, well, now that I've read the book that he wrote about, I'm perfect. No, I'm being
Mm.
perfected.
Mm-hmm.
God is perfecting me day by day.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, so that brings me to another topic that's huge right now in terms of you got people who used to be in church
Mhm.
that just are like, oh God, it's too messed up. When I go to church, it's worse than, I'd rather be out in the club because
Mhm.
them people just as messed up as the people in the club. I ain't going to church no more.
Mhm.
Or, they're hypocrites. So
Mhm.
what do you say to the people? And I can be honest and say that I've been there and I grew up in the church and
Mhm.
my mother was a minister and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But it's been points where it's like, where it's like you feel like you're trying to have the fruits of the spirit,
Mhm.
but you're not seeing or
Yes.
feeling.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But
I
but it's not about everybody else. It's true. It's about your personal relationship. But what do you say to those people who just like, ain't
I
doing it?
I tell people, don't be so one-sided with your walk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that. I said 2016, my life changed. And so when I was a teenager, I went to church some as a teenager. I can't say like I felt the spirit of God, that I ever heard God, saw God, sensed God. As a teenager, I mean, I enjoyed going to church, but I was still going to church with grandma's God, right? And so I went through my 20s. I wasn't feeling nobody's church. My early 30s, I wasn't trying to be in anybody's church. And so I understand where they're coming from. And I always say, well, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, because that's what everybody says. Well, here's reality. If you really want to find the relationship with God that you want, you will look under every rock to find it. So when I decide, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, right? You were talking earlier about Lisa Nichols, right? You only know Lisa Nichols because you went online trying to find inspiration, motivation, wisdom,
True.
another approach, another opinion, because you knew you needed to find people to pour in. And so you'll look at magazines, you'll look on the web, you'll ask people questions, you'll do whatever you got to do to get what you need as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what's more important? Your financial life, your business life, or your spiritual life? Now, before you answer, understand that who you are at your core ultimately always will affect who you are in business.
Right.
If you're shisty, if you're cutting corners, if your values aren't quite right, if you're unhappy, those things will seep out in the way you do business. So my thing is, if you went to a church, the church wasn't right, the people weren't right with you, what's that have to do with you going to find another church? And I think that part of the problem is that people believe that the people of the church were the God of the church,
Right.
right? So you're thinking, because Pastor so and so was doing stuff he wasn't supposed to be, and Deacon so and so was a little bit off, and now I'm going through struggles, but that's all real. But there's other churches that have God's heart and that may have your best interest in mind. It may be uncomfortable to leave, but why would you give up on church? Because it's
Altogether.
almost like saying I'm giving up on God.
Mm.
And so when people tell me, well, I pursue God for myself, but do you really? Now, if you're really like in your word, and in prayer, and your life is being guided by God, but you don't have a church yet, that's yet. He'll show you the next one.
Mm-hmm.
If you say I'm focused on my personal relationship, but you're not actually forming a relationship, then you need to check yourself. It's like me saying, sometimes I talk to guys and guys say, and I've been there myself. I'm not judging. I've been there. What's the most important thing in your life? Uh, God and family. Okay. How do you spend your time? Well, I'm at work 70 hours a week, and I sometimes wave at my spouse before I go to sleep. Okay, how often do you pray? Once a week. Uh, I thought that God and family were your two. Well, I'm providing for my family. Providing what exactly? Because we as men have to provide more than just finance, which is a hard lesson for me and a hard lesson for all of us, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
reality is there's what you say you stand for. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's the actions. Faith without works is dead.
Mm-hmm.
If so what I say to that person is, if you truly are walking in a submitted, surrendered life of going after God, just keep going. He'll get you the next church.
Mm-hmm.
Just he'll keep healing you, he'll keep growing you, and you'll align with the right people. And I don't care if you're meeting with somebody in somebody's house. I don't You don't have to be at a mega church, you don't
Right.
have to be at grandma's church, but you may get into fellowship with people where you study the word of God and you grow in Christ. Go for it. If you say you're focused on your own personal relationship and that's just the way to get people off your back, you have to be more honest with yourself.
Right. That's very true. That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those people who come to you and they say they want to get coaching, what's the first thing that you ask them?
I already told you. Do you wish to get well? Right. And so, honestly, the first thing I often do with clients is I ask them, tell me your story.
Mm-hmm.
Like, who are you? And you learn a lot about a person by their story. So I'll tell you that this is one of the first things that every client of mine gets. I listen to their story because their story is actually telling them the lens from which they view their life.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've been set up to fail? Do you feel like you've never experienced anything but tragedy? Do you feel like you're a winner but the world is trying to paint you as a loser? Like, what is your story?
Mm-hmm.
And so once I kind of assess where people are, what is the view that they're looking at their life, then I ask a question: do you really want to get better? Because if you can't tell from this conversation, I'm going to be real and raw with you. Now, I'm not going to be judgy because I already told you I'm a trip, right? Like, I already said I got to work on my marriage. I already said I got to work on myself. I'm always like,
We all a hot mess.
that's it. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I don't care what certifications I have. I don't care what letters I have after my name. I don't care how many books I've written. At the end of the day, I am a human. And I sit human to human with you and I say, do you really want to do the work it's going to take to get better? And if a person says, yes, I'm going to show up, I'm ready for this, then I'm like, okay, well, then let's get started. If you're like, well, I mean, I don't know. Okay, well, then you got to really go and do some soul searching, because I can't help a person who doesn't want to be helped. I
Right.
can't do the work for you. I think that the greatest thing that I do with people is helping that person see their self so they can change their self. That's my gift.
So, how do people know that they're healed once they go through your program? Let's say they do everything that they're supposed to do. I know you said there's always going to be a journey, but at one point, do you, I guess, as a professional, say, you know what? I see a lot of growth in you. What makes you say that they're at that point, and how would they know?
Couple things.
Mm-hmm.
You should be bearing fruit.
Okay.
So if you have really started to change your life, there's always going to be the fruit of your labor. There's always going to be something that starts to emerge relationship starts to shift. Your perspective start to be adjusted. Your mentality, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but transformed by the renewing of your mind. The mind should start to transform, and then cognitive behavioral therapy, as the mind changes, the behaviors change, right? So I'm always looking at it from the spirit and the science. Okay. And so if I see that you're making that progress, what should eventually happen? A real person who is healed knows where they're not healed still. That's really where it starts. My thing is, there's not going to be a day where you sit with me and you say, I'm 100% healed from everything I've ever been through. We're good. It's more of, we set out together to get you from point A to point B. Some people come to me, they say, listen, Maurice, I've got a business I always wanted to get started, but my broken heart is in the way. My attitude is messed up. Like I can't focus like I used to. My grind is off. And I say, okay, so what do you want to do? Help me fix my mentality. Cool. You understand, to fix your mentality, you're gonna have to fix what happened to you when you were 6, right? You're gonna have to deal with what life was when you were 16. You see what I'm saying? And so you know that you're where you're supposed to be when you begin to do the thing you showed up for. I came in because my mentality was off. It was affecting my marriage. It was affecting my relationship. Well, the fruit is, because I started dealing with those things, my relationship is improving. Those relationships with those kids is starting to get better. You know you are healing, and you're willing to say, I'm healing. God ain't done with me yet, but look at what God has done. That's when you know you're in the right direction. I tell people, stop trying to be healed and let yourself be in the midst of healing. If God is always healing you, then his hand is always on you.
That's true. Okay.
I feel bad when I'm answering your questions because I feel like they don't have like the completion that probably people would want to hear. But the reality is, what I usually do is work with people for a specific period of time, and it's not cookie cutter.
Right.
Everybody's healing looks different. You
It
know what
does.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, okay. Uh, don't ask me why I'm asking this question. So, what do you say when you know you're not in a good place, a healed place, that, and you just kind of avoid people and things? You know what I'm saying? Only
I do.
because, you know what I'm saying? It's like, you want to deal with it, and you dealing with it, and everybody might not understand, you know, but so is that the way? I guess the right question is that the way you should deal with it?
I honestly think everybody's different because I use my wife as an example a lot because we're very different people. My wife is an undercover extrovert, right? And I'm an undercover introvert. Okay. And all I mean by that is, when my wife goes out around good people and she spends time with good people, she always comes back home energized, right? She goes out with her girls, she goes out with somebody who speaks life into her, whatever it might be. When she comes home, it's like she got a pep in her step, right? She's like, hey baby, what's going, baby, I love you so. She just got something going on.
Yeah.
And so I know she's in a good place when she's opening herself up to be around people, when she's pouring into people and she's being vulnerable enough to let people pour into her, that she's on track. Well, for me, the truth is, I have this gift of gab, but I'm an introvert. And so sometimes if I'm unhealthy, I'm always around people because I'm pouring into people. And what I actually need to be doing is going off by myself and tapping in with God. I need to be going off by myself and practicing self-care. And I will avoid being alone so I don't have to deal with me. See it? And so the reality is, it looks different for everybody. Some people are just, they're going through their process. They're off in the cut and they're taking care of self. For some people, that is absolutely what it should look like. I think that the question is always, look in the mirror and ask yourself, self, how am I doing today? That's all you have to do. And if you get real with you once a day, twice a day, how are you doing? And you go, actually, I'm good right now. Cool, keep going. We don't have to make it any deeper than that. if you look in the mirror and you like, oh my God, I'm so heavy. I've been mad all day. I'm in an I wish place. You ever been in an I wish place? I wish somebody would say something to me right now. I
Yes.
just I
Somebody
just
somebody
I wish
called
the
Sid
wrong,
the entertainer.
you know. hey, that's them said places. You know what I'm saying? Right? You can tell I watch between Chris Rock and Cedric the Entertainer. I got little Bernie Mac in me, right? Them my wish places. Okay, that's when you know what? I wish the wrong email would come through right now. You gonna get this wrath. I would
you gonna,
I.
you gonna get this smoke.
That's it. Hey, wanting all the smoke. No, come on and say what you wanted to say. Say what you wanted to say, right? And, and so the reality is, at least for me, I feel like it is not one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be real with you. Where you at? Where's your heart? Where's your mind? Maurice, nobody got time to ask yourself those questions. You better find time. Because if you don't find the issues end up finding their way out of you.
Mm-hmm.
They just come out sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Why you been so you cut me off? You're acting all stressed out. You're blah 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 blah. You're short with me. Blah 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 blah. Well, all that stuff happens because I haven't paid attention to me. And so to me, that it's emotion, it's spiritual. I can't tell everybody, yeah, if you just do these things and this is what you look like, you're in the right place. It's like one person at a time.
So people shouldn't really be ashamed of what it looks like.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I don't think so
Or
because
feel guilty.
yeah. Why would you ever feel guilty for getting better?
Mm.
I think that's societal, right? Like society clowns on you for deciding you need to get help. Society tells you just shake it off. Hey, here's some Chris Rock. Pour some more tussin on it. Right? Like
Go take a nap.
pour some more tussin on it. Right. Like
Drink some ginger ale and go to bed.
come on, come on. And so culture tells you put a band-aid on everything.
Yeah.
Well, let me be very clear. If all you do is put a band-aid on an open wound, the open wound is going to get an infection.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't just cover everything up. So yes, some issues in your life, when you decide you're going to heal them, the world is going to see that you're wounded.
Okay.
What the world probably already saw you were wounded. They just didn't know what the wound was from.
Mm-hmm.
You've been walking with a limp. You've been walking like you don't see stuff very well or see stuff very clearly. We knew your vision was off. We just didn't know why.
Mm-hmm.
And so when now all of a sudden you telling somebody, well, I've been going in to see somebody so I could get my vision checked. Because girl, your vision been off for a while. Now that was funny. And it's also what it looks like when people are dating and dating all the wrong people because they keep dating their daddy. Because they've been dating all the wrong women because they still have all these mama issues. No, we knew you were wounded. And so what we need to learn how to do to one another is applaud when people start doing the work to heal the wound we all knew was there.
Yeah. That's good. So, okay, and I'm gonna let you go because I know we've been on this thing for almost an hour. This is good. This is good. So, as a woman, we're naturally emotional creatures. Some of us are sensitive, more sensitive than we're definitely more sensitive than men most of the time.
Most of the time.
Can't speak for all of us.
That's true.
But and so I think it's yes, women have there are some that have a hard time coming to terms with needing help and whatever, but I think we're more apt to go get it and deal with our emotions. So but what I think is and I have a son too, and so that's why I'm asking this. I think it's hard for how would you say that men deal with that? Because you mentioned society. I think society puts a lot of pressure on men and to, man up, don't cry, and all this other stuff. So, because me as a woman outside looking in, I'm looking like, how y'all, what y'all doing with all these emotions? Y'all don't feel nothing? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Y'all don't. So I don't understand that. Do you feel like men struggle with that? Do you have more
Sure.
women clients than men? What
Yeah,
do
as a coach, as a life coach, I've had more women clients than men. As a chemical dependency counselor, I've had more male clients than female. Why? Because men have a tendency to suppress all their emotions and issues and then go drink them away. And then at some point, the drinking, the smoking, the pills, the whatever gets to be too much and they got to go get help. And so when I meet a man, a lot of men, they haven't cried in years. They don't even think they're capable of feeling emotions. Men cry more often in my sessions than women. Those are facts. There's a whole room full of men crying. I've seen it before. I'm not saying that's every day, but I've absolutely seen it, especially with the way I approach people. What I say to people is this. I do believe that big boys don't cry. I also believe that grown men should.
mm,
Right? And so I'm not telling you actually be out here just crying all the time because your wife will probably leave you. But but here's what I mean by
we
that,
mentioned
right?
balance.
Yeah, I said, okay, bro, that was 21 days in a row. I need you to
Get it
you got
together.
to go see somebody now, right? Uh, but what I mean by that is that the greatest men that I've been around have hit a wall in their lives where they've said, being a person who is walled up is about to make me lose everything. Like, I'm not in touch with myself. I don't talk about nothing. And I've been here. Let's be very clear. I don't like to talk about feelings. I don't like to talk about emotions. Yes, I understand. I'm sitting here doing it. Number one, this is a ministry. This was like God said, I need you to not only start to deal with your emotions, but then I need you to go sit in front of people and talk about it. But God, people are going to look at me like I'm crazy. Okay? And I'm going to look at you like you're obedient. What you going to do? And so when I do this, I understand that most men have no desire to talk about feelings, to think about feelings, or to deal with feelings. And that's why your wife is about to leave you. Your last wife already did. And your daughter may not talk to you in a couple years. So many of us as fellas, like
Ouch.
I did, I don't talk to. You want me to tell the truth? I don't talk to my dad.
Whoa.
You see what I'm saying? Like, how many people didn't grow up around men who were healthy enough to keep around? And so when you finally mature to a certain place, you're like, oh, I love you, but I can't be around you when you're like this. So many of us as adults, that's our situation. If we were even lucky enough to have dad at home, right? And so my thing is, I feel like I'm talking crazy right now, but I guess the whole thing I'm saying is, if you're a man, if your emotions are healthy enough that the people in your life, you have healthy relationships, like you and your girl, you're good. You and your kids, you're good. I mean, really good. They're holding you down. You're holding them down. You share as much as you need to. That you open up as much as you need to. Stay where you are. If every time you have a heart to heart with your spouse, they tell you you're never here. I'm here all the time. No, 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 no. Your lights are off. You're home, but the lights are off. You're never here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a man and you keep hearing that conversation over and over again, you're going to need to show up
Mm.
for the people in your life. And so when I say real men cry, it means real men feel.
Mm-hmm.
Real men show up and they bear their soul. I don't care if it's anger. I don't care if it's frustration. I don't care if it's heartbreak. I don't care if it's disappointment. And a lot of men say, yeah, but I don't want to put all that on my wife. Well, it's already on her. She's already bearing the burden. Women are burden bearers. Okay. You think I
Heavy
could be,
load sharers.
I could, I, you said you got a son. I couldn't birth no baby. Let's be very clear. I
Mm.
don't have it in me. Let me get a cold.
No, you couldn't.
Let me have allergies flare up. When my wife don't feel okay, when my wife don't feel well, she makes herself the tea. She makes herself the soup. When I'm sick, I'm like, baby, baby. Hey, and my wife be holding me down. Okay, baby, I got you. I got you. Women are burden bearers.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me? And so at the end of the day, when you say, I don't want to put this on her, it's
Mm-hmm.
already on her. It's just that when you don't open up, there's nothing she can do about it. She just carries the weight that she can't fix.
Mm.
And so my whole thing is open up as much as you need to the people around you. If you got to pay somebody, if you got to pay a coach, if you got to pay a therapist, you go do that. Find the person who matches your intensity and matches your personality. I
Right.
mean, you see, I'm not about to baby you. So if you come on, I might make you cry, but I'm not gonna be crying with you too often. Like, I'm gonna open up to you, and you gonna get sniffly, and I'm gonna say, well, if you can't cry in a coaching session, where can you cry? Come on, you fine.
Right. And I don't think a lot of men realize how many women or the women in their lives want them to open up. They
Yes.
want to see those emotions. I always feel like honored if a guy is able to show emotion
Mm-hmm.
or be vulnerable.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because
Yep.
it's like that means that wall is down, you know, and he's willing to show you. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I will tell any man in my life, let it out,
Yes.
let it out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not one to sit there and be like, oh, you ain't no man because you crying and da da da. I personally don't feel like that because
Well, but
at
let's
the end
let's
of the
be
day,
honest. Let's be honest. That's why some men won't, though, and that's a hard. That's a
what do
I
you
have
mean by that? I'm sorry.
no. That's the right question. I have sat in front of 15 men, and we've got on the conversation 15 men, and I'm working with them, and I've said, fellas, we got to open up to our women. And the
Mm-hmm.
first guy chimes up. Every time I have ever opened up, I take down the armor and she stabs me. Then another guy says, every time I share my feelings, she takes a low blow. Then another guy says, do you know how many times in my life I got so open and raw and honest that I opened up and they played me? And so what happens to a lot of men is that they opened up and they feel like since they didn't have their armor on, the person was like, perfect, and takes a swipe with the sword. And so we have to understand that sometimes you've done that, or he's had it done to him through mom or through a sister or through somebody else. And so the man will have to acknowledge that that's part of why he doesn't like to open up. No, I've opened up a couple of times in life, but that didn't work out for me. I felt foolish about that stuff. I was like, this is why I don't talk about it. Now we can say, okay, so how do we improve moving forward? Why do you feel like that? Because every time I open up and I talk about so and so, you say blah 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 blah, and you start taking shots. You know what I mean?
But I think that's humans in general,
I agree.
to be honest with you,
I
because
agree.
my mindset is that we're all human at the end of the day.
Yes.
God created us all. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus wept. You know what I'm
He
saying?
did. He
And
did.
and so that means that he felt emotion, being a man and everything, all the testosterone or whatever the case is, or with all the science in place. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He felt all of that. And even when going to the cross, he was scared. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? But
Mm-hmm.
he did it. He still did it. But
It
that
was hard to be Jesus, though.
it
That
it,
was
it was. And
Jesus was
nobody
murdered.
else,
Jesus
right.
was beat up and beat down and murdered. People
Mm-hmm,
talked about him in half the cities he went to. Jesus
mm-hmm,
was misunderstood.
mm-hmm,
Jesus' best friend betrayed him.
mm-hmm.
So it's not easy to be Jesus.
Right.
And I think that we have to acknowledge that. I do agree with you. That's everyone. But
Mm-hmm.
but there's a moment where you'll have to acknowledge that for women, many women have it in them to keep trying. Like, I don't know why. I
Keep
just
trying.
know
What you mean?
keep trying to open up, keep
Oh,
trying to find a way to get it
oh,
out, Keep trying to find a way to get some peace. Keep trying, and most men are just not wired in the same way. Now that,
Mm.
and I'm now again, I counsel and coach men and women, so I
Mm-hmm.
see them both in front of me, and I see women who are locked up and closed up and don't want to talk, and they got walls protecting themselves. But we have to understand that you it doesn't make it any less true what I said that that's why men are the way they are. It doesn't make it any less true. So if you ask the men why they don't open up, they either say they don't feel their emotions, which is probably not true, um, or they say I don't have time to think about all that stuff. I'm out here trying to take care of my family, and
Mm-hmm.
so they think that being a machine is more important than being a well-rounded man
Mm.
because we've been taught to be machines. I
Mm-hmm.
think that women are taught to be hardened humans, not machines. And
Mm.
it's slightly different. So women get hardened like men get hardened, but like you still got to take care of the baby. You got to take care of your husband. Like you got to take care of mama.
And I
Like
think, and I think we actually think about the implications too. Whereas I can't speak for men.
yep.
I just assume that they don't think about the implications. Yes, you're providing. Yes, you're doing all this.
Mm-hmm.
But as a mom, I ain't gonna speak for every mom, but me personally, I honestly don't want my kids to deal with stuff because of what I'm going
What
through.
you're going through.
You know what I'm saying? I
Yep.
don't want that to be projected onto them.
And I think this is all has to do with, again, are we talking about a man who is the evolved man or the man that is like he ain't worked through his stuff yet? So I'm not putting every man or every woman in a category, but it's what you're saying, right? I've had this conversation with my wife, and here's what she tells me. Now I remember Thanksgiving as a kid, right? Now Thanksgiving for me as a kid was all about football. So we got to the house. They turned on the game. The uncles in the room,
Mhm.
daddies are in the room, cousins in the room, and we all sitting there. We watching sports. We
Mhm.
talking.
Mhm.
The women are taking care of the nourishment and the sustenance, and
Mhm.
they're making sure we know. Uncle so and so already done had too many. Get him to slow down. Somebody make sure so and so is good. And by the way, is your marriage okay? And the women are having
Or checking
these.
in.
You understand? And
Mhm.
so my wife said, "Look," she said, I was raised to come back behind the guys, right?
Mhm.
If I walk into my house, I'm famous for not locking my car door. Go into the house. Don't be thinking my wife will pick up my car. Bloop bloop.
Mhm.
She knows how to go behind me and clean up after me. That's how
Mhm.
many women are. And
Mhm.
so I believe that, and I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm saying for a lot of women, you were trained to think about consequences to actions,
Okay.
to pay attention to patterns,
Mhm.
and to get ahead of it or to
Mm.
clean up after it. And a lot of men were just taught
To
go
handle it.
charging into the thing you're supposed to go charging into to
Just
handle it,
handle it. Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
so they're out there and they go get it. and
Mhm.
and the women tend to clean up the aftermath of what go getting it means because you ran through a wall, but when you ran through a wall there were bricks everywhere and there was dust everywhere, and the man just knows I ran through that wall. I know you did, baby. I cleaned up the wall after you left. It's just different ways of approaching life
So
for a lot of us.
yeah, because you never see me doing a UFC fight because I don't want my eye swollen. I don't
Right,
want my,
right,
you're
right,
not gonna mess up my makeup, and you
right.
ain't gonna.
I know that's right. I know that's right. But a lot of times it's like it's crazy because if you insult a woman, right? One of the most insulting words you can say, it starts with a B, and it's a dog, right? It's a female dog. That's one of the worst things you can say to a woman. But men, we're alpha dogs. We trying to let that dog out, right? So a woman, if she's in the worst place possible, you depict her as a dog. If a man is a man, you call him a dog. It's weird. Right? That there's something to that the psychology of what society calls a good man or the man you should strive for is just different. And I
Yeah.
think that the key is, are you going to let society continue to maintain your narrative of who you are as a man? Or will you invite the fact that maybe there's something more rounded you could be? And the same is
Or
true for a
woman.
woman.
Or woman. Because I'll say that because we get to a point, like you said, some of us just shut down
Yep.
because we don't want to nag.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I get, what's that movie where the lady was just praying in the closet, the prayer
Oh,
closet?
uh, oh goodness, I know exactly what you're talking about. The prayer,
Uh,
not the prayer room,
prayer,
war
prayer,
room,
the war room.
war room.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. War
And
room.
and look, I'll just say this: I think a lot of women know why they call it the war room.
Yes, yes. Because I promise you, my wife has been in that war room for me many times in life. I already know that that's the truth, right? And you know what? As men, many of I'll just say for me, I wouldn't be who I am if I didn't have a praying grandma and a praying wife.
Mhm.
And that's not all the people who have prayed for me. And now I got a praying 4-year-old.
That's
And
good.
so the key though is, at some point in life, my wife needs to know that I'm praying for her too.
Mm.
And that's how we know that we're maturing in life, is
Mhm.
that I have to be willing to do the things that she only did for me. And not just on our anniversary, not just on holidays. Like, I'm just talking about because it's a Tuesday. And that's how you know you're evolving in life. My wife and I were just talking about it today. We were like, how do we take our business to the next level, and take our marriage to the next level, and take our parenthood to the next level? And I'd be like, I don't know how to do all that. I don't think it's physically possible. And my wife is like, what you mean it's not physically possible? I'm like, I don't know. That feels like it's going to be off balance.
Mhm.
But for us, we feel like we have to be willing to talk about what's uncomfortable in order to level up. I think that's the key.
Well, thank you so much.
You are
This
so
was
welcome.
very informative
You are
because
so welcome.
look, I thank God for my show. Because hopefully some of the questions, I feel like a lot of people would probably have the same
Mhm.
questions, especially
I think so
those
too.
in relationships, those in marriages, those in friendships.
Hmm.
It's just like, oh, it just feels like they don't get it. I don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
I don't understand. And so I think that this will definitely help people to understand a little better,
Good.
what the people around them are going through um, in any capacity, and
Good.
and then what they are going through themselves.
And that's the key. And
Mhm,
I will say this because I know we're rapping, but I think I need to make sure I say it.
mhm,
One of the main things I say to a person when they sit down with me and they say, "Let me tell you about my marriage. Let me tell you about my broken relationship."
mhm,
They'll break down for me everything that's going wrong, and they say, "Maurice, what you got for me?" And when I'm specifically talking about marriages and relationships, I often say, "Step number one, fix you."
mhm.
And
Yeah.
they say, "No, no, 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 no." I said, "She's trifling." I said, "He's a mess." And I say, "So you have no flaws, no faults?"
Mhm,
Okay, but what about them? But can you change them?
mhm.
Haven't you
Right.
tried to change them already? If you have tried to change them and it doesn't work, then take the energy you've been using to try to change them and change you. And as you get healthier, you'll change your approach towards them. If they don't change, they don't evolve, they don't grow, they don't become, they don't do any of that, at some point, something may need to change. But if you don't ever change you,
Mhm,
someday after your divorce, you'll realize you still needed to change. And
mhm,
if you don't change, then you'll still be broken for the next partner. And
mhm,
then you'll be having the same conversation with me 4 years from now. And
mhm,
so my whole thing is, fix you,
mhm,
change you. Don't
mhm,
just judge them.
mhm.
And now, if they beating you, if they doing crazy stuff, now, I mean, there's limitations to what I'm talking about. But if they're just like hard headed and boneheaded and stuck in a place, okay, I'm gonna pray for you. But faith without works is dead. I'm gonna work on me.
Amen. Look, get you a war room.
That's it. Write it down on the wall.
Get you a war room.
That's it. That's it.
Look, I think if prayer was football, then there'd be a lot of prayed up men.
You telling the truth. If you telling the truth.
So men treat Jesus like football and like he running to the 10-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And women, if it's makeup, act like you you,
Now
you
that's now that's that's now that's a word. But here's the thing though. Here's the thing. If you take, I love football. I'm a big football fan. You take a great quarterback, he misses half of his throws.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a great quarterback, he misses four out of 10 throws. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If some of us pray one time and the prayer don't come to pass, we done. we prayed about one subject and it didn't work out and we quit on it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that actually you really need to look at prayer like sports. You need to
Mm-hmm.
understand you win some and you lose some, but when you lose you learn, and if you lose and learn you'll grow and you'll compete. I'm a Cleveland Browns fan. I live in Ohio. I ain't never seen that team win. I still keep going back.
That's
So
like my
if
husband.
I can't pray, I got problems, you know.
My husband like the Memphis Grizzlies, okay? Only because it's Tennessee.
Hey, y'all finally got to the playoffs, and then Ja is being Ja. I'm not even going there right now. So, hey Ja, call me if you need a life coach. You might not like some of the things I got to say, but brother, I got your back.
Look, if you miss that goal one more time, that's what's gonna be the session. Look, I bet money on you, and you trying to have me out here losing money.
I know that's right. I know that's right. I know that's right.
You have a good evening. Thank you so much, and you guys look for Maurice's books. Listen to his podcast. Get you a coaching session. Book him here, okay? Because we all need it. Okay, we all need it. If we real honest, we all need it. So thank you so much, and I hope you have a blessed evening and weekend, and hopefully you'll come back and see us.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, take care.